I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.
Hello there, Price of Reason here with a series review. It's no secret that over the past several years, I've been very vocal in my criticism of Disney and its destruction of so many classic beloved franchises and IPs by using them as vehicles for modern-day trendy Hollywood propaganda. And while initially, people like me were labeled ists and phobes by the mainstream media, the past year has seen a gradual shift where the access media can no longer cover for Disney due to its ongoing decline and significant financial losses, both at the box office and on their failing streaming service, Disney+. But now, with the release of the South Park special, Joining the Panderverse, it looks like Disney's failure has taken center stage in a real pop culture moment. For decades now, there haven't been many satire programs that have quite the reach and muscle that South Park has had. And it's pretty much known that when South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone decide to tackle an issue, their satire is usually sharp, biting, memorable, long-lasting, and impactful. Recently, when I started seeing promos for a South Park special called Joining the Panderverse, I had a feeling that it would be something good. Replacing South Park characters with diverse women was always going to be funny and topical based on what is currently happening in Hollywood, and I had expected this special to be both clever and witty. But now that I've seen South Park Joining the Panderverse, I'm happy to report that not only have Trey Parker and Matt Stone delivered something good, they've actually exceeded my expectations. In this video, I will be going over the plot of the special, what I liked about the episode, what I didn't like about the episode, followed by my official score. South Park Joining the Panderverse starts off with Eric Cartman having a nightmare about him and his friends being replaced by diverse women who talk and act like dudes and also hate the non-diverse patriarchy. He then wakes up to look under his bed to make sure that there's no Disney executives hiding there, including Kathleen Kennedy, which he mentions by name. Cartman's mother then tells him not to worry, that Disney executives aren't looking to replace all the characters he loves with diverse females that hate the patriarchy. Not only does this first minute of this South Park special signal exactly where it's heading creatively, I think that it's the first time I've ever seen this type of roasting of Disney and Kennedy done by a satirical program with this type of reach and mass appeal. Comments that you may have seen in the past on YouTube channels like this one, and on Twitter for years, are now being spoken on a very big stage. Even the opening title for the special is a Disney-like logo with a subtitle Joining the Panderverse, making it clear that South Park isn't just mocking Hollywood's pandering attempts, but it specifically has its sights on Disney, and it only gets better from here. Within the main storyline, we next see Cartman speaking with a psychiatrist, telling him that every single male character is being replaced by diverse women, and that it's all Kathleen Kennedy's fault, and that Bob Iger doesn't know what to do because Disney's stock is going down. I mean, this may not be new information to us, but seeing it play out on South Park through Cartman's nightmare is indeed very funny. Cartman then tries to explain to his friends at school what's happening, claiming that Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are out to get them, but they seem to think that he's nuts. Cartman then says that he thinks that diverse replacements are connected with a multiverse, but Kyle doesn't want to listen because he thinks that multiverses are lame and lazy storytelling devices. Again, this is something that YouTubers like myself have been saying for a long time, but it's nice to see this type of criticism, as Disney has been heavily relying on this multiverse idea in recent years, which everybody is pretty much sick of at this point. Cartman then gets sucked into a portal into another universe, and he's then replaced with a diverse woman version of Cartman, whereas he ends up replacing her in her universe. In both universes, both replacement Cartmans are not well received. In the South Park we know, PC Principal talks with the boys and tells them that they have to accept the new diverse female Cartman, and if they can't accept that Cartman is now a diverse woman, then they're the problem, not him. Stan tries to explain to PC Principal that they don't always feel that way and gives the example of Miles Morales as a diverse character that at least has a different type of backstory. Now personally, I actually think that the Miles Morales character is rather derivative, but at least his animated Spider-Verse movies have been somewhat enjoyable. Anyhow, PC Principal throws the boys out of his office for being ists and phobes and threatens to send them to detention if they don't immediately accept the diverse female Cartman. From a satirical perspective, I think this is very clever, as it almost feels like the boys are being threatened with cancel culture. Accept this replacement, or else. Meanwhile, in the more diverse universe, Cartman is pretty much being talked down to and discriminated against, and is referred to as a straight, white male that symbolizes the patriarchy. Again, in my opinion, this is just brilliant satire because South Park has created a situation that really highlights the type of messaging we're seeing in all of Disney's programming these days. But they've done it in a way that actually makes sense within the story of this episode. In this universe, we even have a diverse version of Mr. Garrison, the teacher, who wants to teach his students about the evil patriarchy. It's absurd on one hand, and yet rings so true with what we're actually seeing these days from so many of these Hollywood studios. Anyhow, diverse female officers show up to take Cartman away. Meanwhile, at Disney headquarters, Bob Iger can't understand why Disney's stock keeps tanking, even though they keep making the same movie over and over again and keep trying to pander to people. This is hilarious. When Iger tells his executives that they should pander harder to people, they tell him that Kathleen Kennedy is responsible for all of their problems. This part even managed to surprise me, as it's one of the most harshest, blunt criticisms of Disney I've ever seen on such a big stage. Anyhow, Bob Iger tells his people that Kathleen Kennedy made studios money before, and his people suggest that perhaps she's been replaced. That by pandering to people so much, they've created a Panderverse using a Panderstone, and now there's actually a fake Kathleen Kennedy in there from another universe. A Kathleen Kennedy that looks kind of like Eric Cartman enters the room, and all of the executives are afraid of her. One of them tells her that they're discussing a new Prince Eric movie, and Kennedy tells them, and I quote, "Put a chick in it and make her gay." Bob Iger tells Kennedy that they don't want to go the Indiana Jones route, and she tells him, "Fuck Indiana Jones. Put a chick in there, make her lame and gay." And then Bob Iger caves. This Kathleen Kennedy gag continues to appear throughout this episode, where she appears in places and demands to put in chicks that are lame and gay. Whether it's at a restaurant or on the set of Bambi, she continues to make the same demand, and in my opinion, this is really funny. Eric ends up being taken to a police station full of diverse women, and when they tell him that Kathleen Kennedy is looking for him, he jumps out the window and escapes. Meanwhile, when Bob Iger realizes the damage Kathleen Kennedy is causing, his executives show him that it's not actually the real Kathleen Kennedy, and that she has in fact been replaced with a variant from another universe. Meanwhile, in the alternate universe, Cartman tries to get help from a diverse female Butters, but then the real-world Kathleen Kennedy shows up and neutralizes Butters' moms with chloroform as Cartman escapes. At the end, the real-world Kathleen Kennedy variant finds Cartman, and they have a heart-to-heart conversation where Kennedy explains that she kept doubling down on her agenda because of all the hate she got from viewers, and Cartman says that perhaps he was too harsh in sending her so many hate letters. At the end, everybody goes back to the universe that they belong to. Throughout this episode, there's a secondary story about the dangers of AI and how society has become so reliant on technology that they can't get anything done. This ultimately ties into the main storyline, as it is Bob Iger and Randy that managed to retrieve the real Cartman and real Kathleen Kennedy and bring them back to the main universe. Let's start with what I liked about this episode. Number 1, the writing. In the Panderverse special, there are so many clever ideas here seamlessly woven together, and it really shows how much better Trey Parker and Matt Stone are at storytelling than Disney these days, regardless of the satirical nature of South Park. The way they use their multiverse in this episode is actually an interesting way to explore a lot of different ideas. I honestly think that if Trey and Matt were to write a screenplay for an entirely different genre, they'd probably be good at it because they really know how to push their story ideas forward. Ironically, this is something that Disney doesn't know how to do anymore, not for Star Wars or the MCU. Number 2, the satire. When it comes to satire and humor, Trey Parker and Matt Stone have somehow consistently been at the top of their game for decades, which is no easy feat. Even though in my plot summary I went over a lot of great moments from the special, every scene has so many great lines and nuances. I watched it twice and there's probably even some additional stuff that I may still pick up on with further viewings. You can tell that they've really done their homework. To pinpoint figures like Iger and Kennedy and completely roast them in such a way is just great to see, not just for the sake of seeing it, but because the satire is genuinely funny. It's rare these days that I watch anything and have real laugh-out-loud moments, but I had several of those during this special. Comedy is so watered down these days with so much political correctness, but this special doesn't pull any punches, which is great. Now, while I generally think that this was a very enjoyable South Park episode, if I was pressed to point out the weaker side of it, it was the secondary storyline about AI, people being lazy, and handymen getting rich. This secondary storyline wasn't bad or anything, but overall, it felt like something that could have appeared separately in a regular South Park episode rather than this specific special. Again, it's still rather amusing, but nowhere near as sharp as the parts about Disney, Bob Iger, and Kathleen Kennedy, so it gives the episode a bit of an uneven feel at times, even though it's still enjoyable. Another thing that mildly bothers me, and it's not so much the special itself, it's that I and many others have been saying the same thing about Disney and Kennedy for years now, and as much as I like what Trey and Matt have done here with South Park, I really wish they would have addressed this problem years ago, especially since it's clear they knew exactly what was happening behind the scenes. I mean, I can't tell them when and how to do their satire, it just feels like this was a topic that has been relevant for a very long time. But once they did it, I do like the way they did it, and it was welcome even now. Finally, there's a feeling that towards the end of the episode, they attempt to give Kennedy a bit of a redemption, although to be fair, it's very mild, and likely to avoid any kind of potential legal problems. I don't think anybody watches this South Park episode thinking that Trey and Matt love Kathleen Kennedy's work or anything, but perhaps they just tried to ease up on her towards the end there, just so that they wouldn't get into any kind of trouble. All in all, I think that the Southpark Panderverse special was great, and it showed that even after 26 years, South Park still has a lot to offer when it comes to satire, comedy, and commentary. South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone have made so much money over the years that they could easily retire, and nobody would blame them, but they're still doing what they do best, and I genuinely appreciate that. And the best part is that as opposed to YouTubers like myself, Trey and Matt can't just be dismissed by the media as quote-unquote basement-dwelling its and phobes. They're extremely successful and wealthy and have been honored by the industry with Emmy Awards, Grammy Awards, and Tony Awards to their name. In this special, they've highlighted a real issue within the industry, and I don't think that it's something that can be just brushed aside or ignored anymore. I'm sure people will be talking about this, and rightfully so. If I had to give this special a score, I would give it an 84 out of 100, which means that it's not only passing, it's actually good. And I definitely recommend that you watch it. What did you think about the South Park Panderverse special? Did you love it? Feel free to let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel, and also clicking on that wonderful notification bell. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.